Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another edition of In the Chute, or Stump the Chump, or Dad's a Doorknob. I don't know, whatever you want to call them.
We can start calling it Dad's doorknob.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out for you at Christmas time.
Yeah. Well, hey, you guys all love me. I just came back from across the world, so I'm gonna get all the love.
Well, with names like that, that will wear off real thin too. So,
Yeah, we'll see.
what do you got for us today?
All right, so I don't know. This one may be more towards me, and not on purpose, but I want to see what your take was on it. What have you seen? I don't know how much you really traveled across the country. I know you've been a lot in the western part of the United States, far more than I have. But what have you seen across the United States in the difference in agriculture?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. I mean, it's in what aspect? I mean, what do you mean by?
So let me start with kind of what I'm thinking, so you see where my headspace
Yeah.
is. Uh, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas. I'm always gonna clump those four together because I feel like we're the
Mhm.
brotherhood of the whatever you want to call.
Idaho could be put probably into that too.
Nope,
You don't
Idaho
think
goes.
so?
Nope, it goes with Washington and Oregon. It's far too no.
Yeah, but Eastern Washington is much more like us than you would think.
Eastern Washington, yeah, but I think because Idaho is so mountain heavy, it's a
Yeah.
lot like Western Montana, which I also consider Western Montana far different than Eastern
Oh,
Montana.
oh yeah, it's two
And
different states.
that's just topographical. And what's interesting too is topographically it also results in like a political difference too in the state,
It
which is
does.
that's a cool conversation to have later. But Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, it's
Okay.
uh it's cattle heavy and uh, kind of grain heavy. Not a lot. If there is grain, it's going to be wheat, barley, corn for the most part, and it's going to be silage corn. It's not really sweet corn.
All right.
Um, Now, being in New York, it was dairy heavy, and there was some corn and some wheat, but it was very dairy heavy area. And then now being in Kentucky, it's very much a grain heavy industry with horses, which horses are here more for entertainment than they are for agriculture, but you could lump them in. And then I think they've got some hog stuff here. And then I just came from Mississippi this week, and I noticed on the road coming back up through Alabama, they were, how we have the big like ton and a half, 2 ton round bales, and it's always hay.
Mm-hmm.
They had those, but in cotton. And I was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about that. You have a giant bale that they just took the cotton and they made it into one big fluffy pillow essentially. And it was just kind of interesting to see the different areas. So you got, north, I would say north, central, west of the United States is
Which direction did you leave out there? Yeah,
yeah,
north, central, west. Okay,
it's
gotcha.
that's us. We got the cattle and grain. Northeast dairy, kind of mid east Atlantic ish is Kentucky. Kentucky's a weird spot, but there's grain, potentially hogs, and then some horses. And then in the south, deep south, it's a lot of cotton. So that was just kind of where I was noticing things, and I just thought
Well,
what maybe your intake was on that.
in your central states, the Ohio Valley, Iowa, those are really heavy hog and corn
Yeah.
commodities there too. I mean, that's where I think most of our hogs come from. Actually, there's hogs everywhere because they're easy to raise. There's a short turnaround on having a finished product. I mean, they're a good protein source, but they're problematic in some ways, high maintenance in others. But yeah, I've not been in the South all that much. I've been down to like met you in Kentucky. I've been to Texas, but that was Gulf Coast. Um, Not spent any real time down there where I got to look around. So the cotton thing is all new to me. Something I didn't realize as well is how much rice is raised in
Oh
the
yeah.
South. Especially Louisiana, some of those real lowland areas. There's a lot of rice, a ton of rice
Well, I mean, historical
raised.
fact, that's how Sherman made his way to through Atlanta and to the Atlantic Ocean was they started reaping everything from the locals, including rice uh, stocks and stuff like that of taking that to survive on. And I mean, they just created a swath. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I forget about rice too.
Yeah, I mean, not that I don't know anything about it. Believe me. I mean, I know I like to eat it once in a while, but I
Yeah.
know nothing about rice and how to raise it. That's same as cotton. I have no idea. I just
Right.
know that it's very labor intensive on both of them. We have sugar beets up in this country too.
That's right. Yeah.
The Yellowstone Valley is, uh, geez, from call it not really Livingston, but maybe that Columbus Park City area down all the way to the border along the Yellowstone to the Missouri and along the Missouri River as well. Sugar beets, we raise some of the highest sugar content beets in the nation. Huge industry here, which if those guys are lucky enough to have some irrigated ground and can raise beets on it, very, very high type of very intense type of farming where there's a lot to it. You gotta do a lot of work on it for different types of aphids and fungus and all that kind of stuff that you spend a lot of time and a lot of money on it, but it's got a very good ROI either on it as well. So that helps. But yeah, there's a lot of areas that I don't. You hear the dog?
Yep. You got a friend with you.
He's bored. He's like, yeah, I don't want to listen to you guys anymore. Um, he the areas that you do all of this work in, or the crops particularly, not so much the animals, and some animals are that way too. It's about where your feeds come from, right? And so what can you grow where? You look at our pasture, any kind of pasture. If you want to see whether or not you can raise something, what is ecology 101? What's your grass look like? Will this ground support that? Oh, he's thirsty. I can hear him
Oh yeah, that's
jingle
what it
jingle.
is.
Yeah,
Must
he's
be the
drinking out
pug.
of his bowl. He's
Yeah,
thirsty.
sounds like the
Uh,
pugs.
no,
But
that was Mini Aussie there.
well, and another thing too, I'm thinking of you brought up Texas. Uh, I was in Texas for a couple of times going in San Antonio, and I drove through like the northwestern to the central part of Texas on my first trip. And what I remember specifically about Texas is not necessarily the grains, and I don't know how heavy they are in grain production, but I remember the cattle, and the cattle significantly different. And I know we've talked about this a couple of times, and we'll probably talk about it forever and ever. But the difference in cattle of the South, especially Texas, and what we have up north of their cows are typically like the Longhorn body
Mm-hmm.
style, and it's very thin.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume not much meat on the body compared to what we produce, but I could
Right.
be wrong too. And it's interesting that same commodity, different appearance in how in how it looks, at least on the bone and
Well,
whatnot.
yeah, and they normally don't do as well here because we're such a cold climate. And
Yeah.
the Longhorns are the uh, as like your brother said, the Bos Indicus type cow or cattle are hot weather, dissipate heat better, and so they don't do well in the northern climates. And then our type of cattle for the north, the Bos Taurus, are heavier, muscled, um, don't have to dissipate heat because it doesn't get super hot like it does in the South or in Central America, Mexico, and
Right.
that's where a lot of those cattle came from. But they were much hardier for the cold weather, and so yeah, they're totally, completely different operations, and they can live off a lot less hay than ours can too. So
Yeah,
there's a
there's a
trade.
trade-off. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh, from from the places that you have traveled in the United States, kind of like what I said with what I've noticed and observation, what have you seen that maybe I missed?
Um, I don't think I think you're accurate. I mean, it's just different, and there's also cultural differences.
Like
Um,
how you actually produce the item or reap its benefits or what?
yeah, or how your attitude towards it. I
Like,
have
yeah, what do you
seen
mean by
people.
that?
Well, it's like an understanding maybe the differences. I've had people say to me, particularly like with horses, and this is like in not necessarily a clinic situation, but they'll say things like, my horses, we have paint horses, or we've got a quarter horse. Can we run them with like a gaited horse, like a Tennessee Walker? Because will they, do they get along? And it's like, think
Hmm.
about what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
Um,
odd.
yeah, it's a lack of understanding of what an overall behavior of an animal is. That horse, none of these horses know that they are any specific thing. They just are. That's what an existence of most animals are. They're living in the here and now, and they don't, they can whinny to each other, and they're gonna respond. I don't care if that animal's from Germany. They
Yeah.
don't speak. Horses don't speak German. They
No.
might understand German if like we put up a like whoa, so uh things like that. Or you'll hear people. I've run into people where run cattle, and they'll have a small herd, and the way they talk about what they're doing or how their operation runs is very different in some ways. Of, well, we're just going to do this with the babies, or we're going to do that. And I was like, well, okay, why would you do that? And I can't think of what the specifics are right now, what was said, but it was like, it's very odd. And maybe I've just ran into a very few people that were maybe new into it, or it was a sideline that they were learning. I don't know, but it was like very different in their attitude towards the animal. I mean, don't get us wrong. Our animals, most of them are not pets, except the ones your mother is around. But I mean, they're her babies. Even the older cows, the honky ones that uh, but they're also livestock. And so you don't manage them like you would your pet dog. So,
Right.
but yeah, but there seemed to be kind of in that area, and it was like a Wisconsin area where there's a lot of dairy cattle in that, and these were beef cattle that they were talking about. And people that work in those businesses as a serious business, they understand their animals, they understand behavior, should, or they're
Right.
going to be inefficient, right? Or not do things they should, or do things they shouldn't. But um, there are very big cultural differences. I've seen that, and it maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just extrapolating our cultural differences and how they view things. I could be completely wrong that way, but it seemed to be different. Yeah,
Different. All right.
yeah.
I think with that, we'll put this out to pasture.